In this video we're going to do another version of the doll cake that we've done in previous videos. So for this one we're going to do a Halloween one. You can do a witch or a vampire, whichever you prefer. So I've done the board black, some black beading, and I've just brushed a little bit of red on. Now I do have a video for quilting your board like that, so I'll put the link up for that so you can watch that video for the boards. Now with my cake, I've just got a little miniature cake that I've iced very roughly. Now this is all going to be covered, so it doesn't really matter what colour you do it because it's not going to be seen as in the cake itself. Now rather than me show you how to do this again when I've done it in a few different videos, I'll put up the link to the video so you can watch to this point here. And then what we'll do is start to cover it and create a skirt out of this. So as you can see, I'm going to use red, and I've completely dyed my hands. And I don't need loads. It's just fondant. So I'm going to roll it out quite thin into a bit of a long strip. So I'm just going to cut an edge along there to get rid of the sort of torn jaggedy edge from when I've rolled it. And you can leave it with a straight edge, or if you want we can thin it out a little bit and create a little bit of a ruffle. So I've just got a little foam pad here that I'm just going to place this on, and I've just got a balling tool. I'm just going to rub onto the edge. Now you might find it curls a little bit thinner if you're using flour or modelling paste, or if you've rolled it thinner than I have done here. Okay, so we're not going to need this whole length. And what we're going to do is on the front of our dress we're going to have a panel that's red, and then we'll cover the rest in a black, or you can use whichever colour you want. So the first bit of the frill is just going to go on the front of our dress. So I'm hoping that you can see this. So just do it so it just comes to the floor. If you want more ruffles, just add some little creases just slightly to ruffle it as you go along. Okay, and we're just going to cut off a bit at the top because you don't need all that bit. And if you find it's not just sticking, then you can just add a little bit of water or edible glue to stick it to. Okay, so we'll take the next piece and just overlap it. So it's coming slightly over that one that you've just put on. Again, just put some little folds in to concertina it if you want more folds. So I'm just going to trim off this extra bit, and again I'm going to trim off a bit from the top. Okay, and this time round when we put some more frills or pleats in, what we'll do is we'll create a big triangular piece that fits in up to the top of the dress now. Now my icing's a bit dry, so if yours is dry just mix it with a little bit of Trex and it should get rid of all your cracks. And Trex is just vegetable fat. Okay, so I'm going to cut a bottom edge for my skirt down here, and I'm going to cut a rough triangle up here. We can neaten it when it's on the cake as well. So again, if you want a little bit of a ruffle, just rub it with the balling tool. You can use a cocktail stick as well for getting a frill on the edge. Doesn't really want to frill, doesn't this one? So you can just fold it, concertina it by hand a little bit as well. Okay, and what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of water on the back of this for where I'm going to stick it. So I don't want loads. I'm just going to place that over that one, just making sure that all my frills overlap so you can't see any gaps in between. Okay, and what we'll do now is roll some black so it'll cover either side so you won't see this edge. So that's what it looks like so far. Hopefully you can see that. So what we're going to do now is try and roll a big black piece. So I'll just move that to one side. So I've got black fondant this time. Now, I've bought the fondant ready coloured, as it's quite difficult to dye fondant black because it changes the consistency of it and it'll make it a bit runny and a bit sticky and difficult to work with. You'll also find it probably just goes grey. So I'm just going to dust my work surface. I'm just using corn flour. I just find it doesn't stick to the dark icing as much as icing sugar does. So I'm going to roll a long strip that will go around my dress. So we're just going to cut an edge along the bottom for our skirt. If you want to thin the edge again, like we have with the red bit, you can do. Just sticking it under your foam mat. So I've got my dress. I'm going to start at the back, placing it on so that it just comes to the floor. And I'm wrapping it round to the front. Okay. And what we're going to do is now trim these front bits. Now, if you want to use a knife, you can use a knife, or if you prefer, you can use some scissors. Just make sure they're clean. So I'll see if I can do this so you can see. Now, if you prefer to make a mark first with a modelling tool, you can do. So just check where your red bit comes up to, and then just draw a line on there. So I'm now going to cut along that line. And you do the same at the other side. Okay, and we're just going to get rid of these folds at the top, and I'm just going to cut these off, not too far down that you end up with a gap. I'm just going to push those down. So it's just quite a big bulky skirt at the moment. And what you can do now is, using a modelling tool, just put some little lines in. If you want her to look like she's got pleats, just from the top centre bit going down. And you can do that on the black bits as well. You can use that end if you don't want it as deep a mark, or even with your finger. So I've now taken like a pale flesh colour, and I'm gonna do the body. Now make sure you've got enough body, head and arms when we do the flesh colour. Now size wise, I'm going to start to roll it to a bit of a teardrop shape and just flatten the top and hold it against my body just so I can see if size wise, if it looks okay against the body or if it looks too big. Okay, now if you're happy with the size, in this top bit, just pinch all the way around to create a bit of a neck like that. Okay, so we're just going to push it down there, and I'm just going to put my thumb under there to create a little bit of a bust. So it has made our figure a little bit longer now. And then what I'm going to do is just put a little V in there and just smooth it a little bit with my fingers. So again, just checking size wise. So if it's a bit long, your body, just cut it down and just put it on again to check size wise that you're happy with it. So when you've got it the right size, I'm just going to insert a stick which will go through the body and into the cake. So I'm going to start in the neck and just gently push it in, because you'll find it squashes the neck a little bit. Twist it as you're pushing it in. You want to try and get it out as near to the centre of your body at the bottom if you can. Okay, and we're going to leave a little bit stuck out the top where the head will go, and then the rest we'll insert into the cake itself. But what we'll do is start to put some clothes on. So we're going to go back to our red, and we're going to create a little triangular piece for down the centre of the body. I'm just going to roll it out again. I'm going to cut a straight edge for across the top. I'm going to put it on to see roughly how long it needs to be. So the body comes to there, so I'm just going to mark a little bit extra, because what we'll do is try and get it to go down in a V. So again, I'm just going to put it on so you can see how wide you want it to be. So I want it to be about here on mine. So we're going to cut it into a bit of a triangle, like that. And we can shape the bottom bit a little bit more shortly. I'm just going to attach it with a little bit of water. You can use edible glue instead, whichever you prefer is fine. I always find water works okay for me. So stuck that on there. I'm just going to point that a little bit at the bottom. And now we want some black. So back to our black fondant, and again we're going to just roll it. Nice and flat. So I'm just going to cut that down because it's longer than we need. Now we want to be able to wrap it all the way around the body, the black. But we're going to trim this bottom edge because it's a little bit jaggedy. You're just going to keep laying it, your body onto it to see size wise. Okay. And what I'm going to do is just mark a little line up either side. You just want to make sure that it overlaps your red. So let's see if I can get this on. Now if you cut it a little bit short, you probably find that you can manipulate it a bit when you've got it on the body. So I'll turn that over to do that bit. I'll just neaten that one a little bit. So I'm just going to start by putting a bit of water on this side here. And we're just going to attach that onto there. I'm going to pull it all the way around. Now, you can add water as you're going, or edible glue. And again, some on the other side. If I can get it to stay up. Now if you want a bit of a Dracula coral, you can leave this on, but obviously you have to have a straight edge at the top. If not, we can add one after. So what we're going to do is, I think we will, what will we do? We'll add one after. So I'm just going to trim this now up here at either side. And I'll just trim it around the back. If it's not perfectly neat, we can just put hair on that will cover that bit. So don't worry too much. Okay, so mine's not quite level at either side, so I'm just going to trim a little bit off there. See if I can make it a little bit more even. And what we're going to do now is just put a little bit of lace detailing on the top of the body, so it might help if I turn it that way so you can see it. So what I'm going to do is a little bit of water just along that top edge, just taking a small amount of black fondant. I'm going to roll it into a nice long thin sausage shape, just long enough that it covers that. So mine's a bit too long, but that's fine. So I'm going to push it on there. I'm just going to trim it either side. And now I'm going to use a cocktail stick. So using my cocktail stick, I'm just going to push into the black all the way down, like so, and it just makes it look a little bit lacy on the edge there. I'm not sure how well you can see it on the camera. And what we'll do now is we'll put some little lace up bits at the front of a dress, and we'll just roll this out nice and thin. You don't want your pointy edges in. I'm just going to put water on everywhere that you're going to put it. So we're going to crisscross it all the way down. So we'll start here. That's one. Just snap it off at that end. So we'll roll another one. It's a bit sticky as the black fondant. We'll lay that over there and just break that off where it ends there. And we're going to continue like that all the way down. So what we're going to do now is just give that a little bit of time to set, and then when the body's set we can push it into the cake without worrying about squashing it. So what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of water around the top of the body, and I'm just going to insert this, so my body's dropping down my stick, into the cake like so. Just make sure it's central. Just want to make sure your stick's pushed far enough in that it's not going to stick out the top of the head when we add the head. So what we'll do now is give her some arms. So for the arms you want to go back to your pale flesh colour. And we're just going to start by rolling it nice and thin, and this is the same as what we've done in the other videos, and just roll your finger on the end to create a bulbous bit that you're just going to flatten down like so. I'm just going to stretch out the arm, and I'm just going to work out how long I want it to be. Just cut it off. You can cut it off at a slight angle. I've still got black on my knife, and what we're going to do is just cut a little V out of the hand where you want the thumb to go. So these are just basic little arms, nothing too detailed. And we're gonna stick that on just with a bit of water just up here. Now we're gonna give her sleeves, so she will look a little bit different when she's finished. And you're just gonna repeat with the other arm. So position your arms however you want them. If you want them stuck down, just put a little bit of water underneath the hand and then just press it where you want it to go. So what we're going to do now is just roll her some sleeves. So see, mine's a little bit uneven at both sides. She's a little bit chunkier on one side of the dress than the other. So I've rolled a bit of a sausage shape. Okay, and we want it rolled out so that one end is thicker than the other. And what I'm going to do is just hold it against the arm so I can see whereabouts I want the sleeve to go, and it's up to you how long you want the sleeves to be, but I would have them so they don't come fully down the arm. And what we're going to do is just wrap them around the arm. So we're going to put a little bit of water just on the top and down the side, down the other side, and the curved bit on the top we're just going to stick to the top of the arm up here, and we're going to tuck this side down the side of the arm if you can. Just use your paintbrush to poke it in place, and you just want to make sure there's no flesh colour showing. And you're going to push it down at the back as well. So I'm going to try and do that so you can't see it at the back. I've done it slightly a little bit short. Okay. And we've left it so she's got a long triangle hanging down. And you're going to repeat the same for the other side. So what we're going to do now is give her a bit of a collar with the black. So I'm not going to roll it too thin, otherwise it'll just flop over, especially because I've not got modelling paste. I'm just using normal fondant. If you want to use modelling paste, you will find it's a little bit easier. But because I'm using the black, if I use modelling paste with this, it'll make it a bit grey, because I do usually mix the two together. So we're cutting a strip that's going to be long enough to go around the body. I'll just make sure you can see that. Around the back of the body and part way around the neck to the front. Okay, so you want to cut it, do that so you can see it at either end to a slight angle, like that. And I think one end's a little bit thicker than the other. So you've got your little angle. And what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of water just around the top edge, all the way around to the top edge of a dress, not quite all the way around at the front. And we're going to start in the back, at the back in the middle, and we're going to bring it round to the front. So that's just stuck on there like that. Just make sure it has stuck. If you're finding it's not sticking, just use your edible glue instead of water. That should work fine. Hopefully you can see that on the video. I'm not very good with angling the camera so you can see what I'm doing, I'm afraid. Okay, so now she just needs the head. So I've got a ball of the pale flesh colour, which I'm just rolling into a head. So I'm just rolling to make sure there's no cracks in it anywhere. And you can have quite a cartoony face by keeping it quite rounded, or because we're going to make her into a Dracula, maybe square it off a little bit, so flatten it at either side, and we can just bring her down to a bit of a point for her chin. Okay, and we'll just put a little indentation in there where we want our eyes to go. We'll just work on that point for her chin. I'm just going to try to pinch a tiny bit for the nose. So I'm just using my fingers for this, but you probably find it easier with modelling tools. I'm just trying to create her a little pointy nose, only quite small. And what we're going to do is just give her some red lips. So back to a little bit of our red fondant. We only need a really small amount. You're going to divide it into two little sausage shapes. One wants to be a little bit longer than the other one, so the longer one will be our top lip. So we're just going to put a little bit of water on where the mouth would go, and we're just going to, if I don't drop it, put that on there like so. And then we'll just pop the smaller one just underneath. And then I'll just move that around with a cocktail stick so that the bottom lip comes up to the top lip. Like so. And then we'll give her some fangs. So we want some white now. You only need a really small amount of white. I'm just going to put a little bit of water on her lips. And I'm just going to roll that so it creates a little point at either end. And then, do it on the table, not on your hand, just to cut it in half. And just see if you can put them in place. Now if they're too big, just re-roll it with slightly less and just do the same thing again. So see if you can pop them in place. So let's see if I can stick it to my paintbrush this time. I do apologise if I keep putting my head in the way. Okay, so she's got two fangs now. And we're just going to give her two black eyes rather than really fancy eyes. So we're just going to go in with a cocktail stick to create two sockets, which we're just going to put a little bit of water in. so that our eyes stick. I'm going to roll 2 balls of black fondant to go in the eyes. Again, you only need a really small amount. It's probably a bit much, but we'll give it a go. Before you stick them in, just put them next to each other to see if they're similar in size. One of mine might be a little bit bigger, I think. And just pop them in those little eye sockets that you've made. Okay, so that one's a bit too small, so what I'm going to do is just push it deeper in, and I'll put another one over the top. Okay, so she's got 2 eyes now. If you want to give her some eyelashes, you can do. And what we'll do is paint those on, just using food colouring. So I've just got the Licorice Black Sugar Flare one, and I'm going to get a smaller brush than that one. And because it's only a small amount, I'm just going to paint it straight on. If you've got quite a thick food colouring, you might need to mix it with a bit of lemon juice, vodka or water. You can get away with water with it in a small amount, okay? And you're just going to put an eyelash on either side. If you want a second eyelash, just stick a small second one on, like that. You can even have a tiny bit just in the centre, just pointing downwards towards the nose just a little bit, just to make it look a little bit more Dracula-like. Then we'll paint her some eyebrows on, and we're going to paint them at a bit of an angle, so they're almost like 2 little arrows pointing upwards. And I'm just going to make them just a little bit thicker in that middle bit there. So what you can do now is put some little lights in her eyes if you want. You can either paint them on, or if you've got some fondant, you can just put a little bit of fondant in. Just make sure the black eye is wet where you're going to stick it. If you're rolling the fondant, it's going to have to be really small, so it might be a little bit fiddly. So just drop that into the eye. So my white's so small now that I'm struggling to roll it. I'm just going to pop that gently into the eye like so. So one's in a slightly different place to the other, so I'm just going to move it up a little bit. And one of my dots is a little bit rounder than the other one. Now we're not going to give Dracula any pink blusher. If you do want to give her a bit of colour somewhere, we can darken her cheeks just a tiny bit using a black powdered colour. So you'll see mine are completely broken as I've dropped them many times. So these are just my Petal Craft ones. So just using a dry brush, and I've got like a charcoaly one here, I'm just going to really gently put on just a little bit of colour from the top of her cheekbones. I say colour, it's a bit of black that we're just painting on, only a small amount, like that. So what we're going to do now is just push the head onto the stick. Just if you're worried that you're going to move the head or squash the head, just let it dry for a little while, probably only half an hour, and then stick it on. So I'm just going to put a little bit of water on the top of my neck so that it sticks down. You can use royal icing as a glue if you want. Okay, so we'll just put her head on there. And what I'm going to do is leave her head for a few hours to set onto her body before we add her hair. So I'm just mixing a colour for the hair. So I'm going to give her a ginger hair, I think, for this one, because I think if I give her black, it's too similar to the dress. So the colour I'm using here is just the flesh paprika one, but if you put quite a bit in, it does go quite a deep orange. And I'm using the modelling and flour paste for this, for the hair, rather than just normal fondant. We're just going to roll our icing out now, nice and thin, and we're just going to cut off lots of strips for the hair. Now, I'm going to do it in little strips so that her hair's not too heavy on her head. Sometimes I'll put the hairpiece on as one full piece, but we don't want anything too heavy that's going to catch the collar. So if you make lots of small pieces of hair, they should be light enough that they just fall nicely over it rather than squashing it. Okay. So just work out what length you want the hair to be, and we'll just cut a strip that's roughly the length that we want. So I'm going to cut a strip about there. Don't worry if it's some are a bit shorter than others, that's absolutely fine. And what I'm going to do is just cut some thin strips like that, so they come to a point at the end. So just like that. So you do a long triangle that way, and then you can do it the other way there. You can do some a little bit thicker than others, some a little bit thinner. Obviously the thinner they are, the more you will need to put on. So I'm just going to make a load of strips. So we're going to start at the back of the head, and we're just going to put a little bit of water on the back of the head so that the icing has got something to stick to. You can use edible glue. And you're going to start by taking the strip with your pointed bit facing down, and you're just going to stick that to the back of the head like that. So only press gently because you don't want to knock the head about too much. And we're just going to keep those next to each other, just one strip at a time. Now you don't have to start at the very top of the head, because what we'll do is we'll layer it round and then we'll move further up for our next layer. Okay, so when we've done that, we're going to start putting them a little bit further up on the top of the head. So we'll start from up here. Now, if they're a bit too thick at the top, we'll just cut them down a little bit so they don't take up too much space on the top of the head. Okay, and we'll keep doing that. And we'll want to make sure that we've covered all any bits of the back of a head that might be poking out, because you don't want to see a bit bald scalp on it. And of course when you've got them on, you can sort of move them around to where you want them to be if you want to curve them and things. Okay, then we'll start to move around the head, coming further around to the sides. So I'm going to make sure the hair is nice and fine for these side bits. Yep. Just make sure you've got enough to stick it on there. So I'll make this one a bit thinner. And what I'll do is I'll stick the water on the actual hair itself on this one. And then we'll put it so that it drapes over the front of a dress this time. So when you're putting the front pieces of hair on, again, you're just going to cut your small pieces of hair, and what we're going to do is just push them, starting one side and just draping them over. Now, I can see a few bald bits up here, so what I'm going to do is just put a few more pieces of hair in to just cover up those bald patches. I think they're more or less covered. Okay, so that's it. That's the finished doll. Now you see her hair moves around quite a bit at the moment, so you can still move it positions while it's wet until it dries. Okay, now I don't know how well you can actually see that on the video, so I'll put a picture of it up so you can see. Thank you for watching. Do go over to my Facebook page and have a look at more of my ideas and cakes on there. Thank you.
If you liked this video and would like to see more, please click on the images of the other videos suggested. Also, please do subscribe to my channel using the button at the bottom right hand corner of the screen. You can also visit my cake website and my Facebook page to see more cakes and ideas.